Hello, welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. And you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Skeindeer, as well as the Ravelry group Skeindeer Knits, which is your #1 place for my knit-alongs and potential giveaways and pattern release news. More on that in a bit. It's just generally a good place for having a bit of a community feel in relation to this podcast, asking for help from all the experienced knitters that are watching and are part of that group. That group has just become so special to me, just seeing everybody help each other out, especially when I can't necessarily do that all the time, although it is a great place for pattern support as well, and I'm certainly there for that. And yeah, that is the usual introduction that I do. So if you're a new viewer, that's kind of how things roll, and I want to welcome you on board on this podcast. I know there are so many of you who have joined. I tipped 4,000 subscribers a week or two ago, and now it's almost 4,200, so it's gone up quite quickly. So thank you so much for that. I hope you'll enjoy this podcast. But as regular viewers will know, and I want to welcome you guys as well, of course, is that usually my format is some like kind of loosely based around introduction, administrative stuff, and then in getting into the knitting, the works in progress, the finished objects, acquisitions. There's a lot of that today, and then I get into off-topic stuff, the personal stuff. And I will be doing that a bit differently today, and it feels a bit scary doing it differently when I know I have a lot of new viewers who will maybe watch the first kind of real-time episode and wonder where's all the knitting. And there will be lots of knitting in this episode, trust me, I have a lot to cover today. But before I get into any of that, I need to get a little bit personal, though a bit vague. It won't be kind of revealing anything, but I just want you to know that if you are here just to get straight into the knitting, you can just skip ahead. However, I think I would just feel very awkward throughout this episode if I don't just start off by saying that I'm not doing too well. I am quite sad, upset, disappointed in relation to stuff in my personal life, which I have no intention of really talking about in depth. Things that happened in my personal life are severely affecting my mood and well-being, and it's kind of the same thing that happened back in June. So some of you will know and remember that I was away for about a month. I actually thought I would be away for longer, but things kind of turned out okay in the end, and this time I don't know if it will. I don't know, just, you know, you kind of just have to see when you're gonna feel better. And as of right now, I don't, but I'm also sitting here realizing how important this podcast is to me and how this is one of the most positive things in my life right now. And I can't leave that, even if I feel like I might not be the most enthusiastic podcaster that you guys have gotten used to, and it's probably the reason many of you have subscribed. I hope that I still can record episodes when I'm not in that state, when I would rather curl up in bed and sit in my pajamas and maybe have a bit of a sob. And it's better for me to kind of get my whole Skeindeer attire on and sit here in front of the camera and talk to you guys, because yeah, it just matters to me, and I have so much gratitude for you guys for what you've done for me. I can't even tell you. I also kind of want to ask nobody to kind of start speculating about why I am upset. It's literally reasons I've never spoken about on this podcast and never will, I don't think. It's just some things don't go on the internet, some things you can't really say to, you know, potentially everybody in the world. So there's that. I just kind of wanted to explain that if I seem odd throughout this episode, it's literally because I am not in a great place. I don't think anyone needs to worry about me. It's not like that. It's just, I'm sad. And you know, when you're sad, it's like it just weighs you down and slows you down, and you kind of just go, you're like, with me, it's like my reaction to saying stuff, replying to people, having conversations, it's slower and I seem a bit off and a bit awkward more than usual. And I went to, so we're already getting into the knitting now, I went to the Great London Yarn Crawl this weekend, and it was such a positive experience. Like, I am so amazed by the Yarn in the City ladies for having made this event, and the mini market at the end of the whole thing. It was just great, and there were so many awesome people there. There were, you know, people who knew about this podcast, was watching the podcast, so hello guys, it was lovely meeting you. You know, there were some local dyers to me there. There were Helen of the Wool Kitchen, Larissa of Travel Knitter, Lola of the Third Vault Yarns, and, you know, Helen of Curious Handmade was there, Anna Maltz, known as the Sweater Spotter, I think, on Instagram, you know, Countess Ablaze Yarns. It was such a great little event, and, you know, Erica Knight was there, and she's just got this kind of aura where she's just like kind of goddess-like. She's just so awesome. Like, I just wanted to applaud her for everything she said. But even then, like, even if that was just the best event ever, and I was, like I said, really impressed by how it was done, I still have this kind of heavy cloud hanging over me, this knowledge of what has happened in my personal life, the sadness that I'm experiencing, and felt like I was just being really shitty at conversation with people. At conversation? That's not even how you say it. So you know what I mean? You probably had lousy days as well, and you just feel like you can't really have conversations even though you want to, and you're happy to see people you haven't seen for a long time, and or ever, you know. So I was a bit in that kind of, yeah, conflicted, and things are quite bittersweet right now because there is this negative event, this sadness, and then there is all the really awesome things that is happening in the world of Skeindeer. So yeah, I'm ending this on a high note, even though I've just gotten so much support from you guys. I never would have believed that the Selby Mitten Club would have done as great as it has. It's just so popular. I could never have imagined. Like, people are telling me that the club is everywhere, and I'm like, oh, I just thought I saw it everywhere because it's like my thing. People, you know, they tag me in these posts and post in my group, but apparently it's just everywhere. So thank you guys so much, and it is actually helping me throughout all this. It's making me rather positive about my own future, because yeah, sure, I'm doing a PhD and that's all well and nice. Just, you know, I don't mind academia, but if I could go into a knitting design career or just freelance enough to do things maybe 50-50, that would be awesome. Imagine if I could do that. I'm just thinking out loud right now, and I, you know, being self-taught and not professionally trained, I think I would obviously have to go through a bit more in order to get to that place. But right now, you guys have definitely given me the confidence to maybe pursue that a little bit as well. So thank you so much. And yes, on top of everything, I didn't realize until I started recording, my voice is a bit shattered today. There's a lot of weird coughing sound that I've cut out of this little beginning rant. So yeah, apologies. So yeah, thank you all so much for subscribing. I'm just gonna start off by saying that, because 4,000 before I even been podcasting for a year. But yes, I have my podiversary coming up on the 23rd of September, so that would be exciting. And that's one of those things that's kind of brought me back here, is that I'm not gonna not be here for my podiversary. And the other thing that I just felt like I had to tell you, because I realized, even though I keep saying the Ravelry group is where it's at, there are people who only pay attention to the episodes, which I totally understand. I do that with lots of podcasts, so you will perhaps possibly have missed out on the fact that I published a new pattern, which is the pumpkin spice mittens. And these are the mittens in question. Ooh, grab my hair there. So it's got a little cheeky pumpkin on the thumb gusset. I really like that bit. So yeah, just kind of whimsical pumpkin spice latte mittens. Definitely inspired by something that Kate Finson number 23 pitched a while ago. So yeah, just give you a close up. This is basically the whole thing. It's more information on Ravelry about it. It is a kind of typical Norwegian mitten format. It has a, I want to say 31-32 stitch gauge, although you can adjust gauge to get different sizes, and I've had test knitters of mine look into some of those sizes, so I know the range works, and yeah, the maths is on, and that's really exciting to be able to offer you guys. And yeah, I really do suggest using a lofty woolen spun non-superwash sheep wool yarn, you know, your usual Scandinavian, Baltic, Shetland yarn. Fienul garn is certainly a perfect example of that. There is PT2 as well, of course. There is Ask, there is Tove, that's just the Norwegian examples. There is Navia Duo, which is actually what this orange is. The white is Fienul. And Fienul garn you can get at Cheeks shop, which is awesome. I have some skeins coming to me because from there. And yeah, there's of course all the lovely Shetland yarns, you know, Uredale wool, Jamesons of Shetland, Jameson Smiths of Shetland, and I'm sure you could use, you know, Cascade 220 fingering, Knit Picks palette, although those yarns are a bit finer, so I'm not sure what that will do to your row gauge. But actually, if you find that these mittens become a lot longer for you than they do for me, because my row gauge is rather on the short side, actually going for Knit Picks palette, Cascade 220 fingering, or, you know, whole super soft, that kind of yarn, could actually help you yank down the length a little bit. So that's advice, should that be an issue, though it might not be. To be fair, my test knitters have certainly been very happy with the mittens, if I'm to believe them, and they have put their project pages up on Ravelry, and it's just really exciting to see all the different color variations and the different photos from different makers. And thank you guys so much. You guys have been super awesome test knitters and super quick, not to mention. I even have a pair of test knitted mittens here because Christy, who was here in the last episode, did these, so I can attest that they work. But this is what I'm talking about. Some people just have longer row gauge. Actually, I don't know if Chris's row gauge is longer than mine. They are a little bit longer. So that's just, yeah, a thing that happens. And if you do find that your row gauge is rather on the long side, go for finer yarn. Just make sure you knit to right gauge, you know, width-wise, stitch-wise. So thank you guys so much for supporting the pattern. I do have a discount code, which will be, or should still be working while this episode goes up, so I'll put that here. It does expire, so it's just to kind of reward those of you who are getting the pattern early on. Yeah, thank you guys so much. It's already been greatly received, so yeah. I actually also have a finished object. It is a pair of socks, which I finished last night. So very proud to present my Townwall socks. And yes, I did just show you without warning you, because the knit along is almost over. I don't know if it's over by the time this episode goes up, but last queue came out quite a good while ago, so I'm not too concerned here. And yeah, so just giving you a close-up, you can see the sort of faint cabling going on the top. You know, there's a contrast toe here, there is a kind of nice texture on top here which kind of gathers a bit, which is nice. It's kind of a mix of garter and rib, it kind of alternates, it's really cool. And then you have this other texture here which I really liked. It's the kind of cable but just 1 by 1 stitch and then garter, where you kind of move the stitches over. I don't know how to explain that, sorry. And a kind of interesting cuff with a bit of rib and garter as well, which is cool. And then actually the bind off, it's the surprisingly stretchy bind off. You wouldn't think so, because they're all knit in pearl. Knit in pearl. They're all purled. So yeah, socks. I have a pair of socks, which made me realize I have 4 pairs of socks for the box of socks knit along by Kristen of Yarngasm and Wool on Vineyards. That means I'm halfway behind, if that makes sense. Like, we're on month 9, and if I have 4 pairs, that's not great. So just gonna put these away. Although before that, I want to show you the yarn. I used Travel Knitters BFL sock yarn, which is the London Skies colorway, which is amazing. And I had like, I want to say 70 grams left or something, so I could definitely do another pair of socks in this gorgeous yarn and amazing color. It is a bit crazy that I'm using her grey yarn, because if there's one thing Larissa of Travel Knitter is known for. It is her really bright colors, the vibrant colors. They're like radiant red and green and blue and yellow. Like they couldn't be any stronger. And then I chose grey. But hey, that's just what I do. And then we have Tante Ull's BFL sock yarn, so same base. She's a local dyer to me, not in East London like Travel Knitter, but in Trondheim in Norway. And she did this amazing colorway that I picked up in a knitting meetup in Trondheim when I was there in the summer, and it's just great. So being able to kind of marry these two skeins from two local dyers to me, one in one of my homes and one in the other, that was really special. And I finished these socks on the designer Anna's birthday, so it's just really nice having kind of these three people, these three makers combined in one project. So as I was saying, because I am so behind on the whole sock knitting thing and still hopeful, I have immediately cast on another pair of socks. And this pair is from the Tant Ultus book. Tant Ultus Socks book, to be precise. It is a Swedish colorwork sock knitting book that is amazing, and I just ordered this from their website, got it here to London, no problem at all. So if you're interested, it's easy to get. And these are the socks I'm working on, and they look so cool. They're called Mrs. Sergel, I don't know, it's Swedish. I'm saying it in English. You'd think I had a better shot at saying it in Swedish, but I'm not Swedish. So these are the socks in question, and I am using lang yarn. So this is the skein, I can't really pronounce that funky word. So it's superwash sock yarn, and they actually come with a little mini skein in the center. Not a skein, but like a spool of nylon thread. So here you can actually see I am holding it double, so it's, you can see that here as well, actually, the yarn and the nylon. So I'm doing that together for the heel and the toe, possibly also the foot. And yes, the regular disruptor of the podcast has arrived to my neighborhood. I don't know if you can hear that. That is the guy who decides to make noise every time I click to record, regardless of when I do it, but only when I do it. So yeah, these socks, I think they are gorgeous. I love how they look. I love the soft mustard yellow, although I want to say this is more of a grello, perhaps, if that's not the same. It's like charcoal, almost black with the white, and it will go down to a black heel, and then I will continue this pattern for the foot and then have a little grello toe, and that will be one sock already. And this has gone by so quickly because the pattern is so intuitive. I think I'm going to finish these in no time, though don't quote me on that, but that's my guess. And yes, I am using Chargoose again. Apparently Chargoose has become my sock needle of choice, and mitten needles as well, of course. Any sort of short circumference magic loop needle. Suddenly I'm all about the Chargoose, you guys. I'm very sorry about the noise. It's just how it is here. I'm kind of starting feeling fed up with London. I'm just going to put it out there. And I think that is probably also why I'm kind of doing relatively well given how things are going in my personal life. So I'm thinking finish my PhD in a year and just get out of here, because yeah. Anyway, sock knitting, I am just so excited about this book. It is amazing. I love the socks in this entire book. They're just great. I am definitely going to do just so many pairs from that book, I'm sure. Just yeah, it's fantastic. So yeah, moving on. I forgot to mention what I'm wearing. I'm wearing my flea cardigan, but if you'll excuse me, it is actually quite hot in here right now because I have to shut the window because of the noise. Sun is coming in here, you know the business. This is a regular thing. I'm just gonna wear something a little bit lighter. So yeah, that should be a little bit better. I think I managed to shut out some of the noise as well. But hey, let's talk about the flea cardigan because I can't get enough of this thing. I am wearing it all the time. I'm sure I looked a bit like cheeky wearing it at the Great London Yarn Crawl, like just showing off my latest creation. No, I'm literally wearing this to death. It's just coming with me wherever I go. This thing and the winter shawl, both designed by Pinnegudi, and yeah, it's just so wearable, and I'm so happy with the fit and the yarn, and it's just so compact. Like this thing, I don't think you can say it occupies a big space in my bag, you know. So I just fell in love with this immediately. It is one of the few patterns where I can honestly say I would knit it again immediately, and I might just do that. And I don't usually feel that way about patterns. I knit them once and I'm done, and I usually probably should knit them twice, because that's how you learn and get the optimal result. Anyway, so instead of knitting it twice, I cast on another project which I did show you last time, and that is Damjakka Land och Strand. So same designer again, and here it is. So I have started the sleeve because the body is done. Although I am struggling with this rib kind of flipping up sometimes. It didn't do that now, but sometimes it does this kind of, yeah. I think it's just because the rib is a bit on the short side. Maybe it will block out, you know, we can only hope. So it kind of flares out a bit, which is funny, because I'm using a 4mm needle on the body, whereas I'm using 3.25 on the rib. You'd think that would help it, but no. You find actually that I don't speak about needle sizes that much on this podcast. And I don't know if anyone saw that, but the other day I posted a little video clip of Elizabeth Zimmerman talking about needle sizes when they are written up in a pattern. And she's just saying that the whole idea is just fraught. You should never look at the needle size in the pattern. What matters is your gauge. And she just said it in such a Zimmerman way, you know. It's just a fantastic clip. I really should watch more of her old videos, but I can't seem to find any of them on YouTube. So if you know where I can actually find them legally or wherever they are available, that should be legal anyway. I would love to see more of them. I could listen to that woman all the time. So that is why I don't usually talk about needle sizes here, because they are entirely subjective. It's like if someone tells me like, oh, I'm knitting this on 3mm needles and it's so loose, and I'm like, if I use the 3mm needle, it'll be tight, it'll be dense. It's really subjective. You can't really assume that a certain needle size is the same for everybody who's, you know, you're talking to or is watching a podcast, or, you know. So when I'm saying I'm knitting this with a 4mm needle, I'm sure to a lot of people that sounds crazy loose. It's really just a 24 stitch gauge. I just knit tight, especially with color work, so to me this works out just fine. It is at gauge, it is just perfect. I love this cardigan, I love how these colors are playing out, and I'm just using like random skeins here and there. So if I can remember the yarn, this is Whole Super Soft. I believe this is JC Rennie. Could be Stoff Steel's yarn, I don't remember. The pink is by Garnet Salg, their Highland wool. The blue is also by Garnet Salg, their Highland wool. The turquoise is definitely Stoff Steel. It's a Danish fabric shop. They do yarn, which is amazing. And the grey is Whole Super Soft. And then we have this dark purple, which is the Elderberry by Whole Super Soft. And the little kind of grey purple here is Isager Highland wool. I mean, and really all these yarns are entirely compatible. They're more or less the same. And if you have knit with Knit Picks Palette and Cascade 220 fingering, they're sort of in that area. All these yarns, they just work together, do them interchangeably. And you know how like funny I am about mixing different bases. I'm actually more than okay with this. All the yarns are behaving the exact same way. So yeah, started a sleeve now. It is going a little bit slower because this time I actually have to weave in on the ends, all the ends. So I'm doing it as I go. It should be alright. Whereas here, I am just leaving the ends where the steek is. So I've already crocheted the steek actually, so you see 2 crochet bands. So once I cut the cardigan in half, I will just cut the ends off, and they should be capturing the steek the way all the other yarn ends are. So that should be fine. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say. It's a lot tighter than I was expecting. I thought this would have a lot of positive ease, because according to the measurement and the gauge and the stitch count I have, all of that suggests it should have positive ease. It doesn't really, but maybe it will have when I add the button bands. That's fine, it's fine. I'm not doing any waist decreases, so it will certainly have more positive ease for my waist. We hope. Hope you can forgive how low my voice is today. It's just not where it usually is at. That's what happens when you have a week break from podcast. But another project I have been working on, which you haven't seen for a long time. Do you remember this bag? Do you remember this bag? It was sewn by Marsha of Very Little. And we haven't seen it since the last time I worked on this project, because it's been living in here since, what, April? And that's Miss Rachel's yoke. So here we are. Now, I'm gonna confess the reason this thing has been resting for so long. Because I had a little suspicion that sleeve body divide was just too deep. I wasn't sure, I just felt like it wasn't quite right. I tried it on, I'm like, So I gave it a good soak. Let it hang dry. I do that sometimes, because, yeah, why not? And it was so deep here. It was like this much further down, like sleeve divide down here. Not very mobile, not great. So I did some serious engineering on this thing. I cut the yoke off, put that on needles, put the just above where the sleeves and the body connect on needles, removed a whole chunk in the middle here, and kitchen stitched the two pieces back together again. So you can see it is a little bit wonky where I did that. I think that will block out, because the wonky bits are actually the row below where I was sewing, which shouldn't really be that much affected. It's just kind of how I'm pulling them. So I think that'll be fine. Just give it another soak. Not even gonna block, just a soak and dry. So yeah, it is far more wearable again, although I feel like I might knit up the rib collar a bit more, because it's quite open now. Not too open. Maybe it'll be fine. We'll see. So yeah, it is literally so close to being finished, though don't like hold me to my word that I'm gonna finish. I'm working on the rib now, just on the first round, and I'm gonna rib all the way down to where my waist is at its most narrow, perhaps just a little bit longer, we'll see. Might give it another soak and dry to see if it stretches more, because sometimes I like when it stops where my waist is at its most narrow point, but sometimes I like when it goes a bit just beyond that and flares just a little bit out. I haven't really decided. Decisions. What do you think? The sleeves also grew a lot lengthwise. Oh god, it's been trapped in yarn. So I just folded them over. It looks cute and now it works. I did obviously remove a chunk of the sleeves here, so that saved some of the length, and now actually they're fine. And I like a long sleeve. That's what I love about this jumper. It's like this. I just love that. Sorry, I'm weird that way. So yeah, I am glad to have this back as a active project and not a UFO anymore. I'm gonna be so cozy this winter, just having lots of lovely cardigans. And yeah, so the yarn I'm using is Roma Finullgarn, of course. I could have been using Kate Davies on Bouquet yarn, I think that's how you say that, but I didn't, because for a number of reasons. One is just the price point. This is cheaper. I like Norwegian yarn, so I want to support that. I obviously also want to support Kate Davies yarn, so it's not that. But it's heavier. She knits it at the same gauge that she used to knit with Jameson & Smith 2-ply jumper weight. But Jameson & Smith 2-ply jumper weight has a lot more meterage per gram than her own yarn, so I wasn't too keen on using that yarn the same way, because it will just lead to a heavier garment. And you know I love my lightweight garments that I can just bunch together and chuck in my bag. So Finullgarn seemed like a nice compromise there, because yes, it's heavier than the Shetland yarns, but still lighter than Kate Davies yarn. And the colour is actually a lot more radiant than her yarns. They are a bit more muted, which was actually a look I would have preferred over this, but this is still pretty cool. And yeah, bit different color scheme than what I usually do, but why not? And yes, you will notice that I'm knitting this top down, whereas it is in fact a bottom up cardigan, or a sweater actually. So I am both turning it into a top down and into a cardigan. I just found yokes, I find yokes really easy to modify. It's just the simplest thing. I find it simpler than a raglan. So for me, I just read the pattern from the opposite direction. I don't have to plan out anything. And making a sweater into a cardigan as you're knitting it is really easy. You literally just add a number of stitches here and do that all the way down. And you don't count them as part of the regular stitch count. They're just a bonus number of stitches. I prefer 7 per one, knit 5 per one. You do whatever you want, of course. Some people just use 3. They are brave souls. So yeah, that's really all there is to it. Actually, if you do struggle with yokes, or you find that it is a bit daunting because it is a garment, have a read through Elizabeth Zimmerman's Knitting Without Tears. So I have heard about Elizabeth Zimmerman's percentage system for knitting yokes for a long time, and I've been thinking about designing my own colourwork yokes. I just find it a bit scary. I don't know quite what the rules are, so I thought I'd just learn a bit from the queen of knitting yokes, Elizabeth Zimmerman. She's certainly up there in terms of the pioneers of making the yoke a kind of regular in knitting garments. And she just describes it in such a simple way. I don't think it could scare anyone off from trying it out. So if you have a look at Knitting Without Tears, her percentage system is just great. I'm not sure if I would follow it to the teeth just based on stuff that I have knitted in the past, but it should totally work out. And she gives you a fairly simple conversational recipe for a kind of Aran worsted weight sweater, a colourwork yoke essentially. So it's really good. Just have a look at that. Wow, we are on to my last work in progress for this week, and I have a lot of other things to cover as well, and I've spent a lot of time on this already. But I have finally cracked open my kettle yarn skeins. So these are the Bayul skeins bases, I think. It is a yak merino silk blend that Travel Knitted dyes up, and I forgot the names of these, but you should be able to see that on my project page on Ravelry. And I am finally knitting the, I think I want to say this right, Naloa shawl by Renee Callahan of East London Knits and the East London Knits podcast. Now Renee is like one of those big names in the London knitting scene. She's had a studio for a while, though I'm not sure she has it anymore. She teaches a lot in various yarn shops and craft shops and haberdasheries in London and around there. Yeah, just has a fairly kind of renowned name. You can see her booklets in various yarn shops. And before I knew anything about her, I came across this shawl as a store sample in Knit With Attitude in North London, and I just loved it. I held it and I was like, if I can make this shawl, if I can treat myself to this yarn and make this shawl, that's one thing off my bucket list. So I'm finally making it, and it's actually rather simple, and I'm showing you from the wrong side as I do. And there we are. So a lot of stockinette, lots of purling unfortunately, but I am actually doing it rather efficiently, and I've gotten a lot done without even realizing. So yeah, one thing I want to say, if you are going to have a go at this, maybe this is just my visual brain, but I didn't quite understand the written instructions with regards to when to add these columns. But then I just went to the back of the pattern where it's charted, and it made perfect sense. So definitely just want to remind people that it is charted. You can have a look at the chart and that should be fine. So I am now starting to blend into the red, and so I've done a little stripe here, although actually apparently I started the red yarn from the wrong end. I should have like started from the beginning of the row rather than going back from the end, if that makes sense, but it does the same thing. So the ends are just hanging out from the wrong side, but other than that it worked out, so I'm not going back on that. So you can see the lace is now changing and turning into something else entirely, which is exciting. So yeah, we'll see more of this later. I haven't worked on it in a couple of days now, so I'm kind of forgetting what it was like to knit it, but I have really been enjoying it. It's been really easy to just sit here and work on, being on virtual knit nights that I do and talk to people, and kind of been getting me through the past difficult times really. So yeah, definitely a appreciated knit, a lovely shawl. It will be a lovely shawl anyway, and I am just really happy to be having this project where I am supporting both a local designer and a local dyer. So that gets me very excited. So hopefully we'll see that this shawl has grown a bit next time I talk to you guys. And now I'm just going to crack on with the acquisitions. And yes, maybe you can't hear the leaf blower who is literally right outside my window, but if you can't, we're just going to ignore it and look at fancy knitting things that I have purchased and received and otherwise acquired. I haven't stolen, that's like the third option. I have either received it or bought it. Just don't listen to me. So So the first thing is going to be a right good old crinkle party, because it's in a crinkly bag from Kristen of Woollenvine. Is this upside down? It is, of course. I got an oracle kit. I bought an oracle kit, just to clarify. Again, I'm feeling quite strongly about being open and frank about stuff that you pay for and not pay for when endorsing something. And I'm totally endorsing this yarn. Like, Kristen is a fabulous dyer. She's just one of those people who's been in the game for a really long time, definitely knows what she's doing, is also a lovely person who helped me get this so that I didn't have to kind of struggle through a shop update. But it's still something I have, you know, paid for, and very happy to support her yarn dyeing business, because I think it is so impressive what she's built for herself. And I love the Oracle Shawl. I think it's gorgeous, and I'm not usually, you know me, and both hand-dyed yarns and brioche, not really my jam. I'm still feeling very attracted to that shawl, and I'm very, very certain I will be making it. Just don't know when yet, but yeah. So Kristen gave me the Oracle Shawl pattern to have one for me and one as a giveaway, which we have done, and that's over and done, just kind of reminding you. And so now I have purchased the yarn and it will happen. So let's just have a close-up. This colorway is called Plume, and this colorway is Grim, and this one is Mooncusser. And we'll be having a closer look at these when I actually cast on the shawl. I just thought I'd show you. And I really like Mooncusser, because I just thought it was like a kind of lilac thing, but it's got these like autumnal details on it, which I think is so cool. But yes, I am keeping it pristine, because as you do. And I got a little nice thing in the mail, which I had ordered for myself, and that is the third, I don't know if I showed you last time, I don't remember, so I'm going to show you anyway, the third edition of Bladet Garn, which is a Norwegian knitting magazine. I usually present it as the Norwegian equivalent of Pom Pom. It certainly has a lot in common in the format, the kind of things it offers, although I will say these guys have certainly a lot bigger focus on Norwegian yarn, Norwegian designers of course, and Norwegian dyers, and children's knits, which is not something you see in other big knitting magazines, but you see that a lot here. They usually have this children's knit on the front. You can see here, these are the past editions, and now I have the third. And yeah, I haven't really looked into it in depth yet, because just, yeah, saving it for better days I think is the right way, because this is just such a treat. I'm so proud of these guys for having made this magazine for Norway, that we can have something that presents our makers in such a good way. So I just think that's really, really cool. So yeah, might mention this again, perhaps if I knit something from it, or if I just had a good read through and felt like sharing my experience with it. But I mean, I have 3 issues now, and I can wholeheartedly recommend it if you can read Norwegian. Sorry if they don't translate it, but it's really good. You're Danish, Swedish, Norwegian, or otherwise just understand those languages, this should be, you know, you should be able to enjoy this, I think. So yeah. In other news, I have bought some stitch dictionaries. I'm gonna cover 2 of them right now, because I got these 2. They're quite different. So this one I have known about for a long time. It is a Danish kind of knitting booklet, which I've actually had as a PDF that I got from some kind of library or something that was sharing it ages ago in Danish. But apparently now someone has finally gotten an English translation out there, and it's fantastic. Oh my god, I love this thing. Again, haven't really sat down and had time for a proper read through, but I will tell you, I've found this in a variety of shops. So I got this at Foyles in Tottenham Court Road in London, but I've seen it in yarn shops as well, and it seems to be just a new release, re-release of an old booklet. I think it's from the 80s actually. You can see it from some of the photos in here. Let me see, like, you get the idea. Should be some others, yeah, so trying to avoid the glare, but you get the idea. But in general it's just black and white, just things like this, just to give you an idea. It's a lot of Oh, it's so good. Like this is great. I love this. Just showing you the different stitches that are commonly used in Scandinavian knitting. So even though it's a Danish booklet, it should resonate with most people from Norway, Sweden, Denmark in general. Like drawing the line between all those countries in terms of knitting traditions can be a bit vague. So yeah, it should be a bit for everyone who is interested in that. Oh my god, I love these stockings. There's not actually a pattern in here for them. They just look amazing. Or actually, is there? No, there's. Sorry. So yeah, very happy to have this as a thing I can hold in my hands rather than have as a PDF. So. And then, of course, Alternate. I'm sure you've heard about this book. It's been mentioned in a variety of... I know the Knitmore girls mentioned this. I found they have a pile of them in Loop right now, and I bought one because it's so cool. It's got a lot of colour work, charts. It's just a book of swatches, really. I'm not going to show you any of those, but she's got some really cool swatches that are, I want to say, less conventional. These are really cool. So they are zombies. And is there anything else? And owls and robots. I mean, if I can come up with any excuse to use those in a design, I will do it, because this book is just so much fun. Like, it's got all those kind of more conventional, I want to say, color work thingy things, swatches, charts, and then the, yeah, like the owls and the zombies, and there's like a raccoon in a bin, and there's a cake or die where there's like a, you know, Grim Reaper and a cake that's alternating. It's just really cool. So yeah, I love this book. We'll see if I end up using it when designing, because I got the designer bug, you guys. Designing color work is so much fun. The only problem with it is that I really want to knit other people's designs as well. So I thought now we could cover my Great London Yarn Crawl acquisitions. The first thing we got was a goodie bag. A lot of it was just like flyers and things from various shops in London, particularly the ones that you were not kind of designated to go to with your particular group. But we got some skeins. So one was a Erica Knight skein, which this yarn feels so good. It's a DK weight, blue face Leicester, and all I want to do is cuddle it. The only downside is that it's pink, so not really my colour. Not sure what to do with a pink skein. Like if this was bright red, it would be just my thing. But in terms of fibre, they hit the mark for me there, definitely. So it's a pure British blue face Leicester wool, 100% wool, 220 meters or 240 yards if that's what you prefer. So recommended 22 stitch gauge. So you guys, if you are knitting my Selby mittens from the club, I don't see why this yarn would not be perfect for that. It is, for that gauge, like they specifically say that, it feels like it should be perfect. It is very soft. Erica Knight's British blue, 100 gram skeins. If you get one of each, you probably have enough for 2 pairs of mittens there. I'm not sponsored by Erica at all, just kind of mesmerised by how awesome she is, but that is definitely something I can tell you. Wish I came up with any ideas of what to do with this skein. Maybe get a white skein and just make some pink mittens for my club. Maybe already start planning a second club, who knows. Gosh, should we do this again next year? Is it too soon? Anyway, we got more yarns. Well, everybody in my group certainly did. We got some minis. One was a mini from, I believe, Ching Fiber, because she was supposed to have a stand at the market. It was a mini market after the whole crawl, because, you know, if you don't have enough yarn from 4 different shops, then there's a market for that. But she couldn't make it, so she left everybody a little mini, and that will go straight into my blanket for sure. And the other mini I am obsessing over. It is from, I want to say this right, Walcott Yarns. So some of you might remember Walcott Yarns from being what Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade recommended for her Viola wrap for her Shawl Society 2. And I was like, yeah, sure, that's probably nice. I don't think I'm going to do a wrap. I don't wear wraps, I don't have time. And then I saw and felt this yarn at the mini market, and it's a good thing I managed to restrain myself because that yarn feels amazing. It is a Falkland Merino baby alpaca blend. Is it baby alpaca? Yes, it is. Oh my god. So 70% Falkland Merino, 30% baby alpaca, 100% awesome, and I totally agree. But I don't know what I would do with it if I got it. I think when I have a plan for it, this could be something I would splurge on. And I think for me it's good to have something like that on the wish list that is perhaps also at a higher price point, because it makes me kind of hold back a bit in terms of buying other things. So it doesn't mean I will be buying it, it just means I will be thinking about it, because this yarn feels so good. And it has alpaca without the troublesome drapiness of it, because it's such a high wool percentage. And Falkland Merino is just a completely different beast of merinos entirely. Don't think this is superwash at all, so I just love this. I have a weak spot for Falkland Merino, I'll just admit that. And we got a button, a big button, and someone didn't want theirs, so I have 2 big buttons. Don't know what to do with them, but you know, what's wrong with buttons really? Maybe I can make like a cape and have just 2 buttons on it. That looks actually pretty cool already. And we got this from Little Knit Stew. I don't know what that is. And there's like a stitch marker, but I thought it was multiple stitch markers because it's got several rings hanging from it. But I guess that's just a stitch marker. It's just a stitch marker that is holding lots of rings. I don't know. That's the thing we got. And a little badge of pride, the Great London Yarn Crawl, so that people in the shops could see that you're part of the crawl and get goodie bags and whatnot. And we got a little sample of soak, and this is the Pineapple Grove. I've never tried soak. When I block my stuff, I soak it in water, and that's good enough for me. But I'm gonna give it a try. And we got a ribbon. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this, honestly. I don't know who it's from either. That's the thing we got. And we got a pattern. This is the Brighton Dome Socks by Rachel C. Brown. And I think actually this photo is slightly better. It's not, there's a focus, yeah. So, sock pattern. Maybe I'll knit it, who knows. And at last there was a tote bag from Yarn in the City. My group got the blue colours, so yeah. I have a Yarn in the City tote bag. So the first shop that me and my yarn crawl group went to was the Handweaver Studio up in Finsbury Park, and I've never heard of the Handweaver Studio, and I thought, why? That doesn't sound like a knitting shop to me, and why are we going there? I don't think, like, it's a yarn crawl, it's for, you know, knitters and crocheters. Are we weaving? And I went in and I was like, oh my god, this shop is awesome. And I actually kind of want to try weaving, but I got no business getting a loom right now. Maybe, you know, next time I've settled down somewhere, that's something I'm gonna get. For now, I'm just gonna dream about it. But that shop was so cool. It had lots of weaving stuff around, but also spinning stuff. So if you're really into spinning and you live in London, or you are in London, you should definitely head over there. Now, it also had an insane number of cones of yarn, and you know me, I love a good cone. So, but I didn't buy any of them, but it's good to know that they're there. They had this Donegal tweed yarn on cones, and I asked them, you know, you just have a couple of colors out, do you have these colors on big cones? And they were like, yep, upstairs. I'm like, good to know, I'll be back. So yeah, I want to get into tweed yarn more, and that just looked like amazing yarn. And they actually had the kind of lamb's wool that I really like, you know, the fine lamb's wool on cones. So it's good to know that I can get that locally should there be an emergency. But what I did get, well, first of all, 2 darning needles of different sizes, because you just never know when you're gonna need them. And he gave us a free pen with a Handweaver Studio on it. And I got acid dye. So I got red, plum, navy and black. So I might experience a bit with dyeing. And I also got ammonium sulfate. I don't know anything about dyeing. I think the only thing I need to buy now is like a thing to protect my mouth, nose, you know, respiratory areas. I also have a really big pot to dye in. But is it bad that it's really big? Because that means I need more dye, because I need more water. I don't know what I'm doing, guys. Why am I gonna try dye? Because I have so many undyed skeins, that's why. So yeah, that is the plan for that. And they also gave me a tote bag, which is, let me just unfold this so that you know how to recognize their logo. So just a bunch of cones there as well. I should have gotten a hint, really. So yeah, amazing shop, truly. If you are into spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or you just want yarn on big cones, then that's the shop for you. I am very pleased to have discovered this shop in London. Now, the slightly silly thing about the group that I had signed up for was that I, for some reason, thought I would choose the group that is for my two favourite yarn shops in London. So that's Loop and Well and Woolly. Why? But the first thing we did was actually going to Nest up in Crouch End, which is actually a favourite of mine. It's just a bit too far out for me to go there. But yeah, we took the bus from Finsbury Park up there, and I actually did buy some yarn. So let me just defend myself. I got 3 skeins. 3 skeins of baby alpaca. That's all. 50-gram skeins. They're very generous on the meterage. Isager alpaca 1. So it's kind of a lace weight alpaca. It's got 400 meters in this little 50-gram skein. So the plan, the reason why I got this, you might be wondering what's Ellie doing with alpaca. This is new. Because I finally found the pattern for the chamomile shawl by Isager. Is it by Helga Isager? Yes. And that is for holding twinny double with alpaca. And I have twinny already. And I have this kind of greyish purple twinny. I got 2 skeins, which it should be more than enough for this shawl. And so holding that double with the grey alpaca should make the chamomile shawl, which I really want. It looks like a nice woolly wearable shawl. So yeah, I'm very glad to have found the pattern, because I've struggled with that before, because it seems like they only sell the pattern in books, but apparently you can buy it like this. And the other pattern I got is the Tokyo shawl, which I know a lot of people at Loop Knit Night have been raving about, so I just thought I'll get it while I have it here. If I'm gonna make it or not, I don't know, because again, I don't really wear wraps. But I know the people that are knitting this, they just knit it again and again and again. It's a thing that people obsess over. So yeah, maybe I'll give it a chance someday. At least now I have it, and it was super cheap. They are less than £2 each, these patterns. And a kind mutual yarn crawler gave me her measuring tape, because she had several and all of mine are running away from me. So that was very nice of her. So I can now measure in metrics and imperials. Because yeah, and it's a really nice measuring tape. It's way better than the cheap ones I have, so thank you so much. And in the goodie bag we got stitch markers. So I got these snowflake ones, so I'll just show you a close-up of them. It's not gonna focus, is it? Just not. But yeah, that should give you the idea. So they're very chunky, like they got very big rings, but it should work fine, because I have been wanting to make Aran and worsted weight raglans, and this should be perfect for that, because you got 4, 1 for each raglan and 1 for a potential beginning of round, or whatever else you might need it for. And they gave me this booklet of patterns of spring knits. Not my cup of tea. I might put this away for a giveaway or a prize, because the patterns are actually really nice. It's just not my cup of tea. So I want to show you what they look like, just to give you an idea. So if this is more, you know, anyone else's, yeah, cup of tea, I will just put that aside for potentially giving away. And they also gave us 2 skeins, and there was no information apart from what's written here. So there's like nothing else on these spans than the name of the yarn, which is Burgery de France. And this one feels like acrylic, but I could be wrong. That's just my gut feeling, but I'm not always so good at telling from a skein, more so when it's knitted up. Might be a blend. This feels like cotton. It's nice, but again, cotton and acrylic, not on top of my list, but I can see how these would be really cool to knit, like little stuffies or something, like something for Moochie Moochie maybe. I don't know if she uses yarn this thick, but I might put this aside for potentially giving away as a like a runner-up prize or something. I don't know, we'll see. but no point in keeping yarn you don't think you're going to use, because someone else might treasure it more than you do. That's the lesson, I think. So after Nest, we went down to Loop in Angel, which is one of my regular yarn shops. So it's a bit silly of me to sign up to a group that went to Loop, but I like Loop. So we went to Loop and I got something I have been eyeballing for a long time. Well, first of all, I got another Loop tote bag, because you can't have enough of those apparently. You get them every time you buy a certain amount. And I got 2 cables of Jagger because they just got new in stock. And I got, oh, I wanted these for so long, Alice Starmore's Colourwork chart books. So these are excellent reference books, just full of colourwork goodness. So this one is specialized in Fair knitting, and I want to actually start off by talking about the term Fair. It is something I covered a lot of times on this podcast, and I want to emphasize this again because a lot of people actually don't know this. Fair is not a substitute word for stranded colourwork. Please do not refer to all stranded colourwork as Fair. Fair is a very distinct, ethnic, regional style of stranded colourwork, in the way that, say, Estonian lace is a particular type of lace. You don't call any lace, all kinds of lace, Estonian lace. Estonian lace is Estonian lace. Fair is a particular type of stranded colourwork. The reason why it's being kind of used all over the place is just because that's the most common traditional colourwork for English language countries, because English language comes from England, which is part of the United Kingdom, which is where Scotland's part of, which is where the Fair Isle belongs to, essentially. So there's that. But this book focuses specifically on colourwork from the Fair Isles. It doesn't touch on Norwegian colourwork because that's a different regional style. Yes, you still hold 2 strands of colour and it's stranded knitting. That's not what Fair Isle means. Fair Isle is essentially this style of knitting. There's a lot of alternating of colours, you can see that here as well. The XOXO pattern that you see in Norwegian knitting is very much present in Fair Isle, but you can still see it's different, because whereas in Norway the X's are more emphasized than the O's, in Fair Isle the O's are more emphasized than the X's. They might look like flowers or trees or something, but yeah, they are generally more of a central point. So you can see that here. These are kind of the O's here. They're a lot bigger than the X's, whereas in Norwegian knitting, the X's will be the center point and the kind of little sort of triangles in the middle are just kind of a filler, essentially. But yeah, it's a nice example of this, actually, just seeing how colors are very often alternated. Background color, foreground color, or main or contrast color, if you will. That's a very traditional Fair Isle look, whereas in Norwegian knitting, still stranded knitting, we tend to keep to 1 main color and 1 contrast color. Very often black and white, sometimes with a bit of red and blue, potentially brown. So yeah, hopefully that was clear. It's probably going to be something I repeat again in the future, because, well, I've not actually heard anyone refer to my mittens as Fair Isle mittens. That will be inaccurate. And the reason why is not because I think Fair Isle knitting is somehow like, it's not the same as Norwegian knitting. Norwegian knitting is different and it's better. It's not. It's just different. And I think if we're gonna pay respect to the heritage of the Fair Isles in terms of their knitting traditions, we can't be washing out the term and applying it to lots of different things. That's not fair to them. But it's also not fair to other ethnical styles and regions to refer to those as Fair Isle. It's not right to look at Latvian mittens and say that those are Fair Isle mittens. They're not. They are Baltic mittens, they are Estonian mittens, Latvian mittens, Lithuanian mittens, depending on which countries they're from. They are Muhu mittens from a particular island. Like, you want to be respectful in the sense that you use the right terms, so that you're not kind of giving another region and another tradition the credit, essentially. I think that's very important. And also, I mean, you flip the coin around a bit, because I had a German friend of mine tell me that actually stranded colourwork in German is referred to as Norwegian stitch. And I think that kind of illustrates my point. It's not fair to call Fair Isle Norwegian stitch, because it's not. It's Shetland knitting. It's Scottish. And it's not like... Yeah, I think that's my point, really. Just make sure that credit is given where credit is due, and that we don't wash up the term that is Fair Isle knit because it is such an amazing tradition. It should not be mistaken for anything else because it has so much to offer. Like, just look at that. Just, I love it. That's the thing. It's just out of respect for what this is, I think, making sure that we, you know what I mean, I've said it many times already. Look at that. This is Fair Isle, you guys. Let there be no mistake. So yeah, it's just full of amazing charts. I'm gonna learn a lot about Fair Isle knitting this way for sure. It actually has a very interesting section on the origin of stranded colourwork, whether it does originate from the Faroe Isles, the Shetland Isles, or Norway, or the other Scandinavian countries, or the Baltic countries, or anywhere else. And yeah, Alice Starmore does give her own kind of thoughts and ideas on where she thinks they originate from. And it's probably not the Shetland Islands, to be honest. It's, if any of the three, it might just be the Baltic countries that did it first, but it could probably come from further south. So that's a bit of a controversy there. So it's just fair to kind of keep the terms separate as you can. And if you think I'm being crazy about this, hop on Ravelry, go to the advanced pattern search, and you see there is a box on the side called attributes. Now, if you go to the, I think it's called colorwork category, the top one, you will see it says stranded. It doesn't say Fair Isle, it says stranded. However, if you go to ethnic/regional styles in the attributes box, that's where you find Fair Isle. And I love that Ravelry made that distinction, because hopefully that weighs heavier than what I'm saying right now. So I'm not crazy, I'm not making this up, it is there. And I think it's a very neat way of looking at it. So the other book I got, it's called Charts for Colour Knitting, which I think is very nice actually, because I often use the word colour work because I think that is more inclusive, because it includes intarsia and double knitting, because often you can use these charts and do intarsia and double knitting with them rather than stranded knitting. So stranded knitting is when you carry the strand, usually in the round. You can do back and forth, but usually if you do back and forth, you might prefer intarsia. Intarsia is great for having a center point motif that you don't want to carry the yarn around for. Whereas double knitting, you essentially get the pattern on one side is the reverse colors on the other side. You get more flexible fabric than you do with stranded knitting for sure. So, but you can use these charts for any of those things. So I think it's nice that it's called color knitting, and it distinguishes very neatly between the different traditions. So the first thing you get is actually Norway, and then it goes on to Sweden and Denmark, and actually I'm very impressed by how the distinction between all these countries, because it's kind of going gradually geographically through them, and I'm impressed by how the distinction has been made, because yeah, it's just impressive, because there are fuzzy lines between Norwegian knitting and Swedish knitting and Danish knitting, and then you go on to Finnish knitting, and then the Baltic knitting. Any of those countries, they've been obviously well connected and traded knitting amongst themselves. So I think that's really neat how she actually managed to kind of convey the spirit of each tradition in these different chapters. I think she did it really successfully. No surprise, it's Alice Starmore we're talking about. So yeah, love this book. I wish I could show you more of the inside, but it's all charts. It's literally all this kind of format, so I don't want to do anything illegal there, but hopefully you will believe me that this is a two new gems for my knitting library. So the last stop of the yarn crawl was at Wild and Woolly, and that was awesome. However, I actually couldn't justify buying anything there, so the only thing I ended up buying from my favorite yarn shop in all of London, it was a measuring tape. Another measuring tape, because I figured, okay, I have one now, I'm gonna lose it, so let's just get another one. And there's a key ring. Unless I'm gonna lose my keys, I'm not gonna lose this thing. I hope it doesn't mean that if I touch this to my keys I will be losing my keys, because that would be bad. Yeah, and the really cool thing about going to Wild and Woolly and seeing lovely Anna who works in the shop was that she told me, and this is the second time this happened, that I'm walking into a shop and she's like, oh, I was just writing you an email, and I'm like, really? So apparently she got news about this mitten club that I'm doing, as you all know about. You guys are the ones who've been spreading the word, so thank you. So she suggested that we could do a knit night, a sort of casual support knit night for the mitten club at Wild and Woolly. Now I don't know when this is going to be yet. It's probably looking into being maybe October. I will let you know when I have more news on that. If I end up being in a worse state than I'm in now I'm feeling okay actually. It's helped to podcast, but if things get worse I might not record. So then you might want to keep your eyes peeled to my Instagram or Wild and Woolly's website or my Ravelry group to get the news. I should really just make a website. Why haven't I done that? So when we decide on if and when this happens, it will be there. You probably won't have to sign up in advance. There'll probably be a bit of a fee, a very small fee. It's not going to be a proper knitting class, although there will be that as well, but that will go over multiple sessions and will be a thing that will be announcing way later. But as for the casual support knit night, it will be just a very low fee, just to kind of make sure that, yeah, I get, you know, some revenue for going and helping, and also that because the shop has to keep open. That's the main reason they have to keep open extra hours for this. So that would be that. Anyways, the last thing that happened was, of course, the market that I told you about, and it was really nice. It was so awesome meeting lots of people I haven't seen in a long time, and meeting people who said they were viewers of the podcast. And I wish I was in a better state of mind so I could have had, I guess, slightly more meaningful conversations with you guys, because I felt a bit slow and a bit dumb. Because I'm just gonna not be okay for a long while. I'm not gonna let that stop me from being around people and enjoying what this podcast has given me in terms of knowing people and going out to knitting things. And yeah, so the market, you guys, awesome, totally awesome, and was very happy to see the Knitting Goddess there again. The only downside was right in front of my eyes she sold the very last pouch that I really wanted. I think if you have paid attention to the Knitting Goddess Instagram lately, you will know what bag I am talking about. It is very rude, but yeah, it's sold out, so I got another bag instead, which is also kind of rude. So yeah, it's a bit small, to be honest. I guess it's intended for people who do sock knitting, which I don't do that much, but I guess I'm doing now. So although I do multiple colors, so it's a bit can I fit more skeins? Anyway, I love it. It's great. I think she's got the coolest knitting bags. I'm definitely going to get more of them despite the size. And there's a little kind of information card about the bag and the Knitting Goddess here. And this is the last thing that I bought. I only bought these 3 alpaca skeins and this in terms of yarn, and I'm very proud of that. That was my phone, I'm sorry. So yeah, it is her BFL nylon mini pack, and I was advised to get this particular collection of shades from brain fart, Anna Malt and the Knitting Goddess. They both helped me out in choosing, because I told them I wanted to do the Birkin sweater from the 2nd edition of Land magazine, and told them about what yarn I already had from the Knitting Goddess, and they were like, this is gonna go well with your face and your hair, and I'm like, okay, cool, I trust you guys. So I got this, and that's the plan, to have as the contrast colors on the yoke for the Birkin sweater. So yeah, it's 120 grams. It's pretty good. I think it's gonna be plenty for that yoke. I just need to get the pattern. I have been so unable to get that pattern because I can't get that booklet anywhere. Everybody in London has sold out. Yeah, it's a struggle. Anyway, so that's that Knitting Goddess. She is awesome and the best yarn enabler I've ever met. Perhaps apart from myself, because I enable people a lot too, and I'm very much aware of that, and I'm sorry if I haven't enabled you, but hopefully you are happy with the yarn that I have pushed upon you. Sorry. And so lastly, and you'd think this would be the end, right? Because this was the end of the yarn crawl. I went home, and home was a parcel waiting for me. So a lovely viewer of the podcast who has been talking to me for a while about wanting to send me some needles, because we both talked about knitting needles months ago and came to the conclusion that we kind of like the same kinds of needles. It's prim needles, and so she said she knew someone who did wholesales on those needles and could help me get a few, because they're hard to get here in London. And when she said a few, this is a lot. So what I got was this whole pile of knitting needles. It's all prim, it's different lengths and sizes that I am lacking, and so this is all prim. And I also got some interchangeable wooden tulip needles. I've never tried them before, so that should be interesting, and it's a size that I am often looking for, but only have so many interchangeable needles in that size, so they're always busy. So awesome, thank you so much. I was completely floored when I realized just how many needles this was, so thank you. I don't really know what else to say. But that wasn't the only thing she included. Oh no, there's a good collection of tea, which I will be enjoying, and there is this amazing skein. It's called Black Grape, that's the colorway, and it's Harvest Extra Fine Superwash Merino. It makes me think of Quince & Co. I don't know why, that's the feel I'm getting when squishing this thing. And given that it's got 205 meters and it's pretty much like iron weight, that's really good, and probably why I'm making those associations, because it's quite springy and light and the best color ever, and I have no idea what to make of it, so there's that. So thank you so much. This color just hit the nail on the head there. Thank you. And then I got a bit of jingle bells. I got this amazing project bag, so it's just lovely. Jingle, jingle, jingle. I'm gonna put that away. And this thing, excuse me, it is a knitting calculator. And when I first got this, I was like trying to maybe Google how it worked or something, because I don't understand this thing. But then I just had to sit down instead, because I couldn't really get any help from Google. So I thought, well, let's just read through this. It says a lot of stuff on it. So it gives you an example. It says, okay, so say you have 24 stitches at 10 centimeters. Okay, so there's that, there's a dot there. So it says the gauge comes on this wheel here. So when you're done a swatch, you can find your gauge here. Okay, so I got 24 stitch gauge, which is something I often use actually, so that's pretty cool. And then it says, okay, I just pointed to 24. So let's say the pointer is out here. I'm like, okay, put it all the way up to 24 stitches. And then you go, okay, I need this thing that I'm knitting to be 50 centimeters wide or in the round or what have you. So I need this to be 50 centimeters. So you go here, it says 50 here on the red thing. And next to it, it says 120, which means I need 120 stitches. But let's say I need 55 stitches. Well, I can just put together 50 here and 5 further down the red thing, and that is 12 stitches. So 120 plus 12, well, 132. So I need 132 stitches for 55 centimeters at a 24 stitch gauge. It's brilliant. And this is the 10 centimeter kind of half square, so you can do your gauge with this thing, and it has a needle measure thing here. I love this thing. It's just and it's a ruler on the side. Thank you. This thing, it's like I know how to calculate these with the calculator, but oh my god, this is making my life so much easier. And it works totally. I have kind of checked it against my calculator, because that's the kind of knitter I am, and yeah, it works. So, yeah, I have covered everything that I have acquired since last time, and it's quite a lot. And yeah, I feel like I've kind of caught a bit of speed during the recording of this episode. I'm kind of a bit myself again. Things are just going to be difficult from now on, but I'm trying to get as much joy as possible from this podcast, from all you guys' support, and trying to not let this take away from my enjoyment of the fact that you guys are enjoying the Mitten Club so much. You're doing the Marius knit along, which is so much fun to see. The Mitten Club, I can't even tell you the way my pumpkin spice mittens have been received. And I also have another pattern being tested right now, you know, the Yggdrasil knits that I showed you on Instagram and in the past episode, I think. So there's a lot of things going on. Like, it's funny to look at how Skeindeer is just so successful, whereas Ellie is a bit of a mess. But I'll be alright. I'm recording, which is already a sign that I'm doing better, although clearly I can't talk. So London's getting nice and sunny today, so I think I'm gonna head out and see the world and not be all cooped up in my room like some kind of tragic figure. So thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to, you know, maybe try getting the pumpkin spice mitten pattern if you want. It has a discount code that you can apply that I mentioned earlier. It's also in the group if you want to look there. And of course, thank you so much for everything that you do for me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.